As I was composing some thoughts this week for this sermon, the homily, I thought you could well be thinking, Father, not another sermon on love. It seems like we preach on love so much around here. And it's true, but you know why? It's because Jesus spoke so much about love. If you look at his words, he's constantly talking about it. So if our preaching is going to be faithful to the actual words of Jesus, probably we'll find ourselves preaching on love quite a bit during the course of the year. He says to us today to love one another as he has loved us. Reminds us that we're not only to believe in Jesus, certainly we are to believe, or to worship him, certainly we are to worship him, but we're also to follow him by loving as he loves. In other words, some actions are required of us. It's not only an intellectual or a mental thing, it is that, but also actions are going to be required as part of our faith. I read a story this week about Follow the Leader. It was about a group of hikers who were hiking up the Blue Mountains in Jamaica. The first part of the hike was not too bad, but as they got closer to the top, the path became more treacherous. They could no longer walk in a group. They had to walk single file. About halfway up the mountain, now it's pitch dark. The leader stops them and says, please everybody be quiet. And he said, now follow my feet. Do not veer off to the right. And then he took a stone. He asked them to be totally quiet. And he threw the stone over the right edge of the path. And they waited and waited and waited, and they finally heard the stone hit the rocks at the bottom of the mountain. And they got the idea very, very well. Follow the leader. After that, everybody followed him, and they were even leaning to the left into the mountain for the rest of the way to the top. It was a tough journey, but they followed their leader, heart and soul, and they got there. The Gospels tell us again and again that God is so close to us. In fact, he's living within us. Did you ever reflect on that? Right now, unless you're in mortal sin, if so, just go to confession. But right now, God is living inside you. He goes with you wherever you go, all day today. The Lord is living within you, each one of us, every minute of every day. So he's going to stay close to us. We got that. The other half of the equation is you and I are to be sure to stay close to him. It works with the hiker's story, but it's also a life and death issue for us as well, to stay close to our Lord, just like it was for them going up the mountain. Jesus even asks us to stay close to him in the way that we love. He tells us to love as he loves us. So how does he love us? Think for a second of Judas at the Last Supper. Jesus washes the disciples' feet. He stands up and he sits down and he says, one of you will betray me. Notice, Jesus doesn't turn him in, does he? He doesn't say who it was. He doesn't say, Judas, you're going to betray me. I was thinking if he did, because in about 2 hours from this, Peter's going to cut off the ear of the high priest's servant. So if Jesus said, Judas, you're going to betray me, I think he would have run Judas through right there, right at the table. So Judas was lucky, but Jesus didn't. In fact, he kept Judas' secret. He continued to reach out to him with his love and mercy. He broke off a piece of bread. They had this, you think of it as pita bread that they used, and there was a common dish. He dipped it in the dish, think of it like hummus, and he handed it to Judas. In their culture, that was a gesture of incredible intimacy and love. Like, here, Judas, here is this morsel from me to you. So Jesus is loving Judas, even knowing that he's going to betray him to the very end. That's the kind of love that Jesus is talking about when he says, love one another as I have loved you. A love that reaches out even to those who don't like us, even to those who are mean to us. A quote that I love by St. John of the Cross is, "Where there is no love, put love, and then you will find love." First of all, that sounds like a puppy dog chasing his tail. But listen to it. Where there is no love, put love, and then you will find love. In other words, love changes the equation. But somebody has got to get it started. Somebody has to initiate love. It's maybe like turning the heat down on the stove. Somebody's got to start the relationship. Once we put love in a relationship, sooner or later, everything changes. I was thinking of maybe an analogy of one summer in high school, I was painting houses for a group of people. My job all summer was scraping houses. Whatever they pay those guys, it's not enough. The ladders, and some of these old houses in Dixon were like 3+ stories tall. So the ladder is reaching up to heaven, and I'm on top of it, scraping. And the scrapings are coming in my eyes, and my nose, my ears. I think that's when I said I want to be a priest. No, just kidding. It's a God-forsaken job, those poor guys. So we carry the ladder like around the other side of the house, and I noticed these are long ladders. So maybe, let's say I was in the front of the ladder and somebody else in the back of the ladder. If I moved a couple rungs back on the ladder, the other person would automatically move a couple rungs forward to balance the ladder. If he didn't, he would have been carrying a disproportionate amount of the weight. So a move by one person necessitated a move by another in order for it to balance out. I think that's a great example for what Jesus calls us to. Don't worry about it. Just start loving, and it's going to change the balance. It's going to invite the other person to love back. Even if they don't articulate it or verbalize it, it's going to happen. Just like the balance on that ladder. When people make the effort to love, it changes everything. It changes dynamics within a family. It changes our personal relationships. It changes your relationship with a difficult neighbor. It changes the culture at work. Love changes everything. This is pretty hard for me as a Bears fan, but I thought that these words from Vince Lombardi were very wise. So I'm going to just hold my mouth and say them to you, okay? Now remember, Vince Lombardi's a big tough old football coach for the Green Bay Packers. Listen to what he says. I love these words. There have been a lot of coaches with good ball clubs who know the fundamentals and have plenty of discipline, but still don't win the game. And then you come to the third ingredient. If you're going to play together as a team, you've got to care for one another. You've got to love each other. Each player has to be thinking about the next guy and saying to himself, if I don't block that man, Paul's going to get his legs broken. I have to do my job well in order that he can do his job. The difference between mediocrity and greatness is the feeling that these guys have for each other. Most people call it team spirit. When the players are imbued with that special feeling, you know you've got a winning team. Love changes everything. It changes relationships, conversations, it even changes football teams. These days, I think Pope Francis is teaching us all a wonderful lesson on love, namely, recognize the good in the other. There's got to be something in every human being that you can genuinely compliment them on. If you tell me there's absolutely no quality of virtue in that human being that I can't stand, I already don't like him, it's you. It's the beam in your own eye at that point. Every human being has to have something that you can honestly compliment them on. Do it. That kind of humility and gentleness disarms the other person. So they drop their defenses and a conversation can happen. In other words, love is evangelizing. It's a prerequisite for getting our message through. What will speak to this increasingly crazy world we're living in? And it is increasingly crazy. What will speak to it? Love. Ultimately, love is what's going to drop the defenses and let our words get through. Remember what they said about those first Christians. Look at how they love each other. And thousands join them. They wanted in on that good stuff, on that love. It's no different today. Be the first to love, to find and point out the good in other people, and you will bring many to Jesus Christ.